In today's episode, we're going to talk about a case where a horrible divorce turned into the murder of two young girls. Let's get into the case of Veronica Youngblood for your Midweek Mini. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, your Wednesday Midweek Mini edition. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kai, and I invite you to listen to this episode till the end. And if you like it, then go ahead and hit subscribe on whatever platform you're on. If you're a returning lamb, I want to thank you so much for your support. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Actually, right now is the time to get into our Patreon as we have a November half-off sale going on, and it ends at the end of November. I'll talk more about what you get in Patreon at the end of the show. Patreon.com/love and murder. But in the meantime, let's get into your Midweek Mini. On the evening of August 5th, 2019, a 911 call came in to dispatchers in McLean, Virginia. There was an emergency at a high-rise apartment on Greensboro Drive. The 15-year-old girl who was on the phone with the 911 operator said that her mom had shot her and her sister. When first responders arrived, they were able to get into the house through an unlocked door, and they found 15-year-old Sharon Castro with multiple gunshot wounds to her upper body, one in her back and one in her chest. She was still alive, and in getting ready to take her to the hospital, she told police that she thought her mother had shot her 5-year-old sister as well. Sharon was rushed to Fairfax Hospital, and in the meantime, police kept searching the house, where they found 5-year-old Brooklyn Youngblood already dead in the master bedroom. She was shot once in the head. And although Sharon was rushed to the hospital, she had been in critical condition, and she ended up dying of her injuries. Now, although the two children were in the house, the mother was nowhere to be found. Veronica Youngblood, who was born around 1983, now her date of birth was not given, but based on her age during this case, I kind of calculated it. So that's why I said around 1983. She was from Argentina and had moved to the U.S. to start a new life. As a child, Veronica was physically and sexually abused, and as a teenager, she became a sex worker to take care of her first daughter, Sharon, who she had when she was 16, and her younger sister. While working as a sex worker, she met a man named Ron Youngblood, who hired her for her services. Ron was a Navy veteran who was stationed in Honduras at the time, and he later ended up bringing Veronica to the U.S. and married her on July 28, 2009. The family traveled a lot with the Navy because, in the military, you travel. You usually have 3 years in one place and then you travel. But you can have the option to stay still. But I'm a military brat, so this is how come I know. You end up getting used to the traveling. When the 3 years hit, you get that 3-year moving itch. So with the Navy, it's the same thing. They traveled a lot. And they ended up having another child named Brooklyn in 2012. Then they settled down in Virginia, and Ron started working as an IT consultant. However, the marriage started to crumble, and Ron and Veronica divorced in 2016. The entire family was supposed to move to Missouri, even though they did get a divorce, but at the last minute, Veronica decided to stay in Virginia. Ron moved with Brooklyn with a judge's approval. Of course, he didn't just kidnap the child. They were having a custody dispute, and the judge sided with Ron, so he ended up moving with Brooklyn over to Missouri. And from reports, I'm pretty sure he would have wanted to move Sharon also, but that's not actually his kid, so he didn't have that choice. According to court documents, Veronica had a complex and often tense relationship with her daughters. Brooklyn at one point did end up leaving her father in Missouri to come back to Virginia to spend time with her mother. So it seems like it was just a trip, not that she was planning to live with Veronica, but she actually came to spend time with her and her sister. Veronica had confided in her friends about her anger and bitterness towards Ron, and she literally just said she was frustrated over the whole custody arrangement. In the months leading up to the murder, Veronica reportedly became more erratic, with some acquaintances noticing her growing despondency and anger. Now, let's go back to the day of the crime. As soon as the scene was secured, basically the police made sure that nobody was in there. It was safe. Sharon had made it to the hospital and they took care of Brooklyn. So as soon as all of that was done, investigators started putting the pieces together. Police issued a lookout for Veronica Youngblood. Following the shooting, Veronica had left a voicemail on Ron's phone saying that she had killed their children and that she hated him. Wow. That diabolical. Quote, the suspect, 33-year-old Veronica Youngblood, was found in Loudoun County after an acquaintance called police when Youngblood knocked on their front door. So basically, this acquaintance, I love when they call them acquaintance because these people are like, oh, so you were a friend of her? No, I'm an acquaintance. I just know her. I say hello in the morning sometimes. That's about it. So when I see acquaintance in the report, I make sure I say acquaintance. So it's so funny. This acquaintance pulled a Kai. So Veronica knocked on her door. Hey, can you help me out? She said, yeah, come on in. No worries. I got you. 911. Yeah, 911. I have this woman here and she has a crazy look in her eyes and she has blood on her shirt. Get over here now. Not that I'm saying that's how it happened, but what I am saying is she knocked on an acquaintance's door. They answered and they called the cops to say, hey, she's here. So within hours, police arrived at the scene and arrested Veronica. Veronica came without resistance. During initial questioning, she did admit to killing her children. She blamed the murder on the custody battle and that she'd planned on killing herself as well. Of course she did. How many times do we hear that? I murdered this person and I did plan on killing myself. How many times have we heard that? You murdered people and then you said I was going to kill myself too. I mean, I'm pretty sure sometimes that's the thing, but as many times as we hear it, I don't think so. I think that's a cop-out. You just wanted people to think that, oh, you're not such a bad person that you were just going to murder somebody. You were going to murder somebody and then kill yourself, which still doesn't make you any better. I don't know why people say that. So anyways, she said she was going to kill them and kill herself because the custody battle and she just couldn't take it anymore. And then she told the police that she deserved the death penalty. As police were searching the apartment, they did find a handgun that they believed to be the murder weapon, as well as notes and journals that Veronica had written where she expressed her frustration over this custody battle. So, okay. You're frustrated and angry and everything else over the custody battle. Murder is still not the choice. That's not an option. You just pull up your big girl underwear and deal with it. She was arrested, like I said, and then her trial started in Fairfax County Circuit Court. Veronica pled what? What, lambs? Let me hear it. I'm listening. That's right. Not guilty. What's the additional? Not guilty by? Yup, reason of insanity. Not guilty by reason of insanity. Yeah, I mean, I'm still looking for somebody to tell me why people plead not guilty after they confess. I'm just wondering if there's a legal thing behind it. I don't know. But either way, even though she confessed, she pled not guilty by reason of insanity. She said the reason of insanity was because she heard voices and the voices told her to do this. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued that the killings were premeditated, basically citing her own admission and the meticulous manner which she planned the events. Quote, this was not an act of sudden rage. It was the result of calculated decision-making driven by anger and a desire to hurt those around her. So the prosecution brought up the paperwork showing what she told police, that she did it and she deserves the death penalty, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Your Honor, and that she told police that she thought she was sending her daughters to, quote, a better place. And the fact that she bought a gun 9 days before the murder shows premeditation and clarity. This is what they said. They also told the court that Veronica gave her daughters melatonin gummies, putting them to sleep before shooting them in their beds. Quote, this person wants to manipulate. This person wants to lie. Ensue chaos, all for this person's personal gain. Miss Youngblood is spiteful, selfish, vengeful, and calculated. This was a statement by prosecutor Claiborne Richardson. The defense, however, portrayed Veronica as a broken woman who had spiraled into despair. They argued that her mental state had deteriorated due to a combination of untreated mental health issues, feelings of abandonment, and desperation. They then told the court about her experience in poverty and abuse growing up. Even her sister, Maria Kuzuba, testified, telling the court about what she said her sister's religion was, where she thought she spoke to the dead. This is what she said about what her sister had told her. Veronica's defense team also presented evidence of her long-standing mental health challenges, basically saying she was not fully in control of her actions. They called expert witnesses who did testify that Veronica had exhibited symptoms consistent with severe depression and possible psychosis. Then Veronica told the court about her abuse. She spoke about how her own mother and father beat her until she couldn't walk when she was a child, and her father hit her every day with a belt, a broomstick, and a branch. She said her grandfather repeatedly abused her sexually as a child. Now, while I do sympathize with all of that because that is a horrible, horrible upbringing, nobody should have to go through that. But at the same time, the cycle of abuse should end with you. If you are abused, that cycle of abuse should end with you. Why would you want your children to go through the same things you did? And I'm saying in general, I'm actually not talking about Veronica. I'm talking about whoever's listening to this episode that needs to hear this. You grew up being abused, whether it was mentally, physically, emotionally. Why would you then put that on your children? And some people do make it a point to cut the cycle of abuse with them. As with Veronica, I mean, witnesses are coming out and saying that she does have possible psychosis. And just because somebody's appearing to know what they're doing, that doesn't mean they're actually in a lucid state. It could have been that she thought she was hearing voices, and then we're ending up tracking her pattern of behavior as if she's lucid, but we have to understand there's a possibility she's not lucid. So this is where it comes into heavy play. This person needs to be monitored and evaluated by a mental health professional, one from the prosecution and one from the defense, just to keep it easy, because the defense could just have their person say whatever. So one from the prosecutor, one from the defense, and really extensively monitor Veronica to see if she is mentally competent or not. But in my opinion, they ended up treating it like she's just somebody who knew exactly what she was doing. That's the prosecution's defense. And then the defense says she doesn't, but they're going to the other side of the road. You got to kind of meet in the middle. It's not she didn't have any control over her actions and mental health and that's it. And let's look at her background. Like, there's people with these sad backgrounds too, and they don't murder. Veronica then went on to tell the court that her parents abandoned her and her younger sister when she was just a teen, which left them alone in Buenos Aires to fend for themselves, which again is completely horrible. Why would you do that? And then she saw Ron sitting in the crowd and she yelled at him, quote, "Why did you leave me? Why did you leave me alone with the girls? None of this would have happened." So now she's blaming him. It's his fault. So everybody's fault but her own. Fairfax County Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Kelsey Gill called Veronica, quote, "malicious, selfish, and a deliberate killer." And he went on to say that this case, quote, "goes well beyond merely having a mental illness. This goes well beyond depression. This goes well beyond PTSD. This goes well beyond being suicidal." The trial lasted just 2 weeks, and then the jurors deliberated for just a day, and they came back and said Veronica was guilty. On March 27th, 2023, Veronica went to her sentence. At her hearing, she spoke for 30 minutes, once again talking about the abuse growing up. calling herself a, quote, good mother, and saying, quote, something happened in her brain. Quote, I don't know how to explain it. Something exploded in my mind. So after she gave her 30-minute speech, the jury recommended 78 years in prison. Cold-blooded. Cold-blooded. Tell me you don't care without saying the actual words that you don't care. Then the defense lawyers asked for the two sentences to run concurrently, which would have reduced the sentence from 78 years to 42 years. And Fairfax County Circuit Court Judge Randy Bellows said, no. Quote, mothers and fathers have many responsibilities, but none is more grave than keeping their children safe. Tragically, their mother became the instrument of their death. Then in the middle of sentencing, Veronica stood up screaming, no, and had to be dragged out of the court. Like physically, they literally I can't remember how many cops it took, but I know one of them held her in a bear hug and then they literally had to drag her out of court. If I find that video, that's going to be in the Patreon. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. After that outburst, and once they got Veronica out of the court, the judge sentenced her to 78 years in prison. Now, it's interesting to note that during the trial, they did play the 911 call that 15-year-old Sharon made. And in that call, you can hear her say, quote, my mom shot me, and quote, I don't want to die. And after the entire trial, jurors actually were so traumatized by hearing this call that they asked if they could receive therapy. I completely understand. There's certain 911 calls I don't even try to listen to. This is one of them. I didn't even look it up. I don't want to hear it. And then to hear that the jurors couldn't even take it themselves, I definitely don't want to hear this 911 call. Just hearing the quotes from the 911 call is heartbreaking. Can you imagine that? I mean, literally put yourself in this 15-year-old girl's shoe. Can you imagine that? The one person in your life, and it used to be her and her mom against the world before they came to the U.S. Not saying she didn't like Ron. She loved Ron. Ron calls her his daughter and everything like that. But I'm just saying, it used to be her and her mom against the world when they were back home. And then suddenly she's turning a gun on you. I can't even begin to understand the heartbreak. Ron told reporters after the trial, quote, I lost my entire world that day. I loved my girls more than anything, and I still can't understand how this happened. See, he said his girls. He loved his girls. So he did end up taking Sharon under his wing, like that was his daughter. Ron said that even though he knew the judge would impose the maximum sentence, and even though he knew that Veronica will spend the rest of her life in jail, he is going to always mourn his daughters. Quote, they weren't the most important things in my life. They were my life. That was all I really cared about. When she took that from me, it's something I'll never get back. This is a quote from Ron. And that is a case of, I don't even know if it's to deem her as a selfish mother, a narcissistic asshole, or is it that she actually had mental health problems and she was probably dealing with psychosis, which in that case, I can't really judge her because she wasn't in her right mind. She would hear stuff that we wouldn't hear. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how to judge her, but what did you think about the case of Veronica Youngblood? Did you think it was a case of mental health, or did you think it was just a manipulative woman who wasn't getting what she wanted and she did this horrible, horrible thing? But I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take mental health out of it and I'm going to tell you my opinion on that. So it seems like, minus the mental health, if she didn't have mental health problems. This is my hypothesis, if she did not have mental health problems. It seems like she wasn't getting what she wanted. She was angry with her husband. She was even angry with her husband that he took her daughter under his wing and loved her. And he wanted to take both girls with him. The marriage wasn't working out how she wanted. She wanted both girls to stay with her. And this is what she did. Again, hypothesis, taking out mental health. Then I didn't like that she kept harboring on her past. Yes, I know it's a horrible past, and your past does define you in some ways, but you can, I don't want to really say overcome your past. You can work through it. Some people can do it with the help of just talking to good friends and good family who actually care and will listen. Most people would need the help of a professional. So that's something that she could have done. Clearly, her past affects her so much that she's constantly talking about it. She talked about it in the hearing. She talked for 30 minutes about it in the sentencing hearing. Like, clearly it affects her. So this is something that she should have been going to therapy for. And I mean, to be honest, I could see why it affects her. She did have a really hard, horrible past. But this was something that she needed to talk to a professional for. And I'm saying this in general. This is anybody who's listening to this podcast. If you have a past that affects you that much, you need to find a way to, not everybody could afford therapy, but do you have anybody in your life that you could talk to? Your significant other. Your significant other usually should be a place that you can go to lay open anything that's going on with you. Just somebody to listen to you and hear you out. If you don't have that, friends. If you don't have that, there's also anonymous hotlines that you can call, text that you could text to just talk, just to get it out. But keeping it in and letting it fester is not the answer, because clearly, in the case of Veronica Youngblood, this is what happens. All right, so I'm going to get off my high horse right now. You heard what I wanted to say, so I just want to hear from you. What did y'all think about this case? Did y'all think Veronica was a case of mental health, or do you think it was a case of just a woman who was manipulative and spoiled and wasn't getting what she wanted, so she murdered her children? Actually, I'm going to put that poll out. So if you want to answer that, you can go ahead and answer that. You could answer the poll on Spotify. You could answer the question in the Patreon, and you could do that in the After the Pod Facebook group. All the links are in the show notes below. But in the meantime, let's get into your comments, and boy, do I have a backlog of comments from you. So in the case of Helen Volpatti, this is the case where I talked about this guy on 90 Day Fiancé blaming his blatant lies on his autism. And I was like, no, you were just gaslighting the shit out of her. And he then tried to say, well, the gaslighting was masking. And I was like, no. And then even the crew was telling him no. Allie M said, you're so right about the 90 Day Fiancé thing. I thought the same thing. Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, is he serious? Like, don't get me wrong. I actually like him as a character. I'm going to say character, because we all know this stuff is scripted to an extent. But when he was saying that, I was like, is he serious right now? Autism doesn't make you gaslight and lie your ass off. That's, you're blaming your autism on something that's not about autism. You're just lying. Just say you're lying. So I'm glad somebody else saw it. And thank you for your comment, Allie. In the next comment, it came from the case of Inga Carey. I asked, what do you think the sentence for these two should be? Christina Bobo said, they should be sentenced to strangulation, but not immediate. They should be strangled until they pass out 30 times, one for each year that they lived their crummy little lying lives, knowing they ended their premature baby soon after she was born. Then they discarded her like trash and just went on living. Not even a dog is that dirty. Then the fact that they stayed together makes me even more upset, because what was the reason? Do you know if they had other kids? I wonder if this was a one-time deal or if they had other babies. So this is actually a question I got asked more than once, if they had other kids, and why choose just this one. So it never came out if they had other children, and why choose this one? I would think maybe because it was the first one, and maybe this is just me spitballing here. Maybe they weren't ready for it, which is complete utter bullshit. I mean, not being they're not ready for it, but murdering your baby because you're not ready for it. Freaking craziness. But no report had actually come out and said that there were other kids. So I don't know. And I wonder why they stayed together, because I wonder if the murder brought them closer or something like that. I don't freaking know. But I really hope there were no other babies, because did they grow up? Or are there other sites that we should be checking? And by sites, I mean grave sites. And if you didn't listen to these episodes, all of the links are in the show notes below. So go below, listen to the episode, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Then in the case of Jasmine Moss, if you don't remember this was a while ago. It was a Memphis woman who had her minor child, I think it was a 5-year-old, helping her do Brazilian waxes. Gypsy said, unbelievable. All of the adults involved should have some sort of punishment. That is like a form of sexual child abuse. That poor baby is definitely going to need therapy. I completely agree, Gypsy. Everybody that allowed this to happen, unless you were under some kind of anesthesia and didn't know a 5-year-old was in your crotch, everybody who allowed this to happen need to have charges brought up against them because that's frickin' crazy. Then we have a comment from the case of Giovanni Jennings. Vicky Stevenson said, I love the t-shirt idea. Hope it comes to for real. Love your stuff, lady. Love you too, Vicky Stevenson. I can't remember what I said about the t-shirt idea. I am actually working on getting my store back together. It's slow going because for some reason I can't find people to work who want to work. So I'm doing everything on my own. And then once in a while I interview people, then train people, then they're like, oh, it's a lot of work, and then leave. So it takes up my time. So it's slow going, but I will re-listen to that episode to see what t-shirt idea I had. I know Christina Bobo wants, don't use my money to fund your honey. She wants that. And I have to remember what I said for Giovanni Jennings. But thank you so much, Vicky, for listening. On that same episode, Henna Page said, my fiance listens with me sometimes. He likes you as well, although he doesn't like true crime much. He said a ghost gun is a gun that was bought off the black market and has the serial number, etc., scraped off so it cannot be identified. Ah, okay. I understand. That makes so much sense. Thank you, Henna's fiancé, and thank you for listening with her. I'm glad you liked the show. Christina Bobo said, some say too violent. I say not violent enough. I'm trying to understand the mindset of an itch who would watch someone harm their child and not do squat about it. Then had the cajones in Kai's voice, fingers up like the Italians. That's exactly what I do when I say cajones. That's so funny that when I say cajones, I do exactly that with my fingers and everything. Anyways, then had the cajones in Kai's voice, fingers up like the Italians, LOL, to blame the father. That poor 4-year-old witnessing his brother, quote unquote, dying all day. My God, the trauma. That poor baby must have been in severe pain and he was ignored for 3 days. Then I really don't get parents who call the cops like, oh, my baby isn't responsive, and not mention that this is a severe case of child abuse and maybe, I don't know, forewarn the cops of the grotesque scene they're about to witness. I could not be a cop, judge, attorney, nurse, doctor, psychiatrist, none of those jobs where they see this on a daily basis. I'd probably become a vigilante because cases like this makes me think we need to start eye for eye and eyes some criminals. Look, Christina, don't I always say we always know Kai can't do this. I just go through the list of what I can't do because, I believe the vigilante thing would do. I'd become Batman. I mean, I'm just saying. Christina continues, in cases like this, I always wonder where the fuck is the other parent and their family? Where are the neighbors or any other family members, teachers, social workers, somebody? How does this keep happening? And why don't they give their babies up if they hate them? That's what I'm saying. Why keep them? And there's so many anonymous ways to give them up. She continues, you wouldn't do some of this caca to a dog. How can you treat another person this way, especially their child? They beat this baby over his entire body, shot him, and got the other kids to participate in this. They enjoyed harming him, Kai. I just can't. Seriously crying like a baby, going to go watch some cartoons. I wish I was home because I'd be hugging my babies right now. I'm most sad because how many Giovannis out there even now? Sorry I made you cry, Christina. I agree. It was a hard, it's just, I, as y'all know, and I tell you many times, whenever I do this true crime, most of the time I cannot let it sink in. So it's like, I read it at a surface level. I read the report at a surface level, and I got to keep it surface level. And when I do start feeling it sink in, I take a break. Like, I can't. Can you imagine me doing every episode crying and breaking down? This show would not continue. And that doesn't mean that I don't feel. I feel for the parents. I feel for them so hard, and I feel for the victims. At the same time, I just have to protect my mental health, or else I wouldn't be able to get their stories out anymore. I would just be a basket case, and their stories would be told, but it wouldn't be told in the way that I would want it to be told, or like a lot of the victims' families and friends have told me that they appreciate it being told, which is calling out the bullshit that happens in the investigations, asking these people, what the frick were you thinking? Stuff like that. It would just be told like any other news outlet, like, in today's news, this and this happened, and these are the facts, and this is that, and the case is over. Which I do mine like this because I feel like I'm talking for the family, because I know the family are behind the scenes. Like, how is nobody seeing this? How is nobody outraged? How? And so I bring that outrage to the show, and I get a lot of comments behind the scenes saying, thank you so much. So for me to continue doing that and bringing that, I cannot let it seep in. I cannot let it affect my mental health, because the show would just have to end. I would be a basket case. So I am sorry that I made you cry. Trust me, I took breaks in between recording this and writing this and editing it, because it was hard. It was very hard. Christina Bobo continues, me at work right now and probably the rest of the night. I hope Jailhouse brothers and sisters get it back in blood, as the kids say, for Lil Chulo, and also his siblings, who were just babies and victims too. I pray they get the help they needed and the cycle ends with them. And that was the last comment that I had for past midweek minis. You can go ahead and leave your comments anytime. Even if you're listening to old episodes, leave comments. As you can see, I'm going to get them and I'm going to read them. If you missed any of those episodes, all of the links are in the show notes below, so you can go back and listen to them. Thank you for those who sent in their comments, and thank you for those who listen, even if you don't send in your comments. I appreciate either way. And I promised you at the end of the episode I would tell you about the Patreon sale. So we do have a half off sale going on in November, meaning that the highest tier we have, you get half off. So you'll get everything for half off the highest tier price, which is $5 a month donation. So if you come in now before the end of November, you'll get bonus episodes, case extras, ad-free shows, intro-free shows. You'll get to watch court proceedings. You'll get to watch interrogation videos. You'll get to play games with me. You'll get to learn more about me, see what I do in my daily life as I put out those kind of videos as well. Like this week, we have 2 bonus episodes coming out. We have an episode of a man who killed 2 people he didn't even know. And it was a clear-cut case of mental health issues, but how did the court treat it? So we have that coming out, and we have another bonus episode coming out. And coming up at the end of the month, you get to know me. I answer 3 of your questions. And in December, we have a quiz bonus coming out. And the quiz bonus is kind of new, but I think in 2025, I'm still trying to plan out how to do the quiz bonuses, because I think I want to give out prizes for that. Like people who win, I want to give out prizes. Or maybe invite people to even come on and do the quiz with me. So still trying to figure that part out. But either way, this is the stuff that's coming to the Patreon / already in the Patreon. And if you want to be part of that, enjoy that little community, then now is the time to do it, where you get it at half off. Get it before the end of November, because by December 1st, the sale is going to be gone. I know a lot of you have reached out to me and tell me that you will be joining, and I thank you for that. I can't wait till you come in. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. And if you join with the sale for as long as you stay, even once the sale goes away, you can't see it anymore on the dashboard. Even once it goes away, you're grandfathered into that $5 a month price. Patreon.com/love and murder. Now is the time to get in. Take advantage of the Patreon sale. I cannot wait to see you over in there. You'll also be a sponsor of Love and Murder and help keep the lights on, period. And I want to thank you, whatever you do, whether you're just listening, whether you share it, whether you joined a Patreon, whether you joined a free Facebook group. Either way, thank you so much for supporting Love and Murder. And that is all I have for you for this midweek mini. And oh yeah, don't forget a free and easy way to help me out is just by sharing this episode. Share it with everyone you know and everyone you don't. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.